Great games at your table. Welcome to Game Master's Guide. I'm Jonathan Albin, your host, and tonight we're going to be talking about naming things. We're going to talk about nomenclature and why we pick the names we do for the locations that we do and how that evolves into a greater understanding and reality for our players. Before we do that, make sure you go down below and click all the buttons to let the algorithm know you're part of our audience, and let's go to work.
Absorbing damage is the name of the game. From the claws of monsters or the heat from a ball of flame. Our strength in numbers is a roll of the dice.
As the old saying goes, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. A rose is a rose is a rose, right? But when you're running a role-playing game, you need your players to be able to really grab a hold of the location, make it feel real to them. And so therefore, by providing them with not only the names, but the reasons for those names, you really give them a chance to make the adventure their own. Tonight, we're going to be looking at 10 different ways you could name your locations, give you some recommendations on how those might be used and how to work them in. I will also be giving a list of names as examples that are both from the world of Nikos and from other adventures that I have run in the past. So feel free to take advantage of those as well. So the first thing we're going to look at is names as places. Now these are the names that define your world. When a place name becomes so synonymous with the setting that it alone can conjure the entire tone or mythology of your game, you know it belongs there. These names aren't just locations, they're narrative landmarks. When a person says Thorn or Nikos or the Whisper Mist, the player should feel something: awe, dread, mystery, longing. These are names that carry narrative inertia. They'll feel old, inevitable, and earned. A good place name doesn't need a backstory every time it's spoken. It is the story. Think of places in narrative works like Mordor or Atlantis or even The Rapture. Even without knowing the full context, the name feels complete. It rings with implication. In a setting like Nikos, these names often reflect the iterative performance. Places that appear in every cycle, known across cultures and across the centuries. Now you should use these names sparingly and purposefully. They serve as anchor points to the player's internal map of the world. These are the kinds of places that people have never even heard of them. Have heard of them even if they've never been there. It gives weight and promise to your mystery. So give them space to breathe and let them loom in the player's mind. Now, in some places, the name doesn't just describe the land, it tells you what it is. These are the names that define the role of a location, not just its geography. You don't just necessarily visit the Fairy Court. You're entering a place where courtly things occur. Whether those are ideas, people, monsters, or myths, the name speaks volumes to what the place does in the world's narrative function. This naming convention is especially useful in stories that you want to evoke a sense of purpose or destiny. These are rarely places people stumble upon. They are sought out, yearned for, or warned against. In the world of Nikos, places like Point's Edge might be something more than just a locale. It could be the last archaeological remnant of a failed Eldrin bio-worship or something. The name becomes fundamentally a short story, even as the players are hearing it. Now, you want to use this approach when you want your place to feel inevitable or archetypical. These are places that should be recognized across different cultures or timelines. The essence survives even as the map shifts around them over time. Now, names sometimes carry fear on their breath. These are the places where the sound of the name alone causes people to lower their voices, glance behind them, or make warning signs for their people. These are the names that are meant to be remembered, as warnings, as curses, as stains on the map. A threat name often feels like it wasn't given by a cartographer, rather by a survivor. They might be metaphorical, such as the dread maw, or bluntly descriptive, like the Seath Mark or Reaper's Hollow. These names can refer to cursed regions, ancient battlegrounds, buried evils, or places where reality grows thin. Their value is in the visceral reaction they evoke: revulsion, dread, or even defiance. Use this category when you want players to feel danger before they even arrive. These names should spark curiosity wrapped in caution. And be sure to deliver on the promise. Don't let Dragonfall turn out to be a friendly inn unless you're going for deliberate subversion and perhaps some fun. Now, these are names older than the Empire, older perhaps than language itself. These period names are built to evoke time, to carry the dust and lichen of centuries. Even if your world is young, these names give it gravitas. They imply depth, continuity, legacy. Whether they are ruins, cities, temples, or even relics, these names are themselves the survivors. In Nikos, iterations are everything. The rebirth of the world gives rise to constant change, but some names persist. They may return in altered forms, emerge as relics from the previous word cycles. Even names like Maricania might have belonged to another place or another time or an individual. Its presence now in the world is a thread to be pulled forward from some much older weave. This naming style is particularly effective when you want your players to feel like they are small figures in a big history. These names suggest mythic resonance, even if no one can remember their actual origin. The players might be the first to unearth the meaning of Jezreel, or they may have been the last to hear it spoken. Now, place names often are associated with what somebody does, whether it's fishing, mining, crafting, brewing, tinkering. The industry defines the rhythm of their lives. An industry name, therefore, will reflect what the people labor for, what they fear to lose, and what defines their prosperity. These names ground the world. Not every location needs to be fantastical. Sometimes Colrest Springs or Saltmere Shoals feels more real than a dozen invented syllables. In Nikos, where the guild's castes and resources their conflicts define so much of the culture, these names hint possibly at power structure in the area as well. A place called Grainkeeper Barons is more likely has more going on than just a quaint farming economy. Now, use these industrial names when you want the setting to feel practical, connected, and tactile. These names give players a touchstone, something that feels lived in. Even if the story turns arcane or epic or completely changes the way they perceive their community, it's helpful to have locations that reflect basic human concerns. By nature, nature names are the purest kind of world building. Before politics, before industry, people name things for what they saw: a hill, a stream, a grove. These names feel honest, unforced, and timeless. Rain Thicket, Glass Grove, Stone's Throw could have all been named yesterday or even 1,000 years ago. In Nikos, where these primal forces clash with high mysticism, natural features retain power, literally and shattered. A grove might hold an ancient resonance. A crag might be a remnant from a shattered iteration. Nature naming gives weight to the land itself, suggesting that the world resists human overwriting. These names are great for early settlements, border regions, or perhaps forgotten places. They're also powerful anchors to the fairy courts, to the realm of spirits, or other regional myths. Nature doesn't have to explain itself, it simply is. So do these names. A name can be a legacy or a warning. Naming places after people is a way for society to elevate, enshrine, or blame someone. In Nikos, these personas can reshape the fates of iterations, so it makes sense that certain locations bear the names of those who shaped them. Whether it's the Vaults of Darken or Miri's Gates, these names even tell small stories. They offer clues to the kind of values a culture might celebrate or fear. Sometimes a person is gone, a long historic name. Perhaps they never even existed at all, and therefore the name becomes aspirational. Use these names to deepen your world's lore through implied biography. Players will often ask, who was the Fisher King? Or who is this Kelman? And this style also makes memorials, epithets, and even war memorials feel more real and evocative. Now, not every name needs to be dramatic. Some real people often my screen went crazy. Real people often give silly, quirky, or goofy names to their homes and taverns. Scamperback Hollow might refer to those who tried to run away. Who knows? Maybe the Three Seashells was the name of a failed water mage's estate. Maybe Puddlewick got its name after a barrel accident. Who knows? What matters is that the players smile, remember it, and talk about it. I can remember in particular I had a village that was named Nestal, Nestal, and boy did my players go to town talking about melting the structures and seeing if there was actually chocolate in them because they equated it to Nestle, which was of course horribly, let's just say they had a really good time in Nestal. Whimsy names often become player favorites because they are unexpected and, well, they're human. Use these names to breathe life into secondary locations, inns, side quest locations, and even oddball villages. It's great for travel logs. It allows for a funny montage as they go through that location and may lead to some quirky encounters. And it often helps to offset the intensity of your more serious themes. Sometimes something so important happens at a place that it changes the location itself. Perhaps there was a meeting, a duel, a miracle. These purpose names are monuments in language, shorthand for the entire event. Torchmere isn't just a location, it's a historical scar. In Nikos, these names may be directly tied to the cosmological war between the iterations. Perhaps First Fall was where the first enjoined landed. Perhaps these names have become a cultural shorthand and referenced in plays, songs, and curses. They echo through the annals of the time in which you're playing. Use these names to mark narrative turning points in your world's history. You don't have to explain them all right away. Let their weight linger. These names are both invitations and promises. Something happened here. Come and see what remains. Now, some of the best names aren't designed at all. A mistake, a joke, a translation error, your players looking over your GM screen, and suddenly a new name sticks. Oops, well, damn. It just kind of sticks. These names feel real because they weren't actually calculated. They were accidental artifacts of language and of survival. In Nikos, where the passage of knowledge is often disrupted between the iterations, accident names proliferate. A place may be renamed 2, 3, 4, 10 times by different civilizations, but for somehow the wrong name survived. These names show how people live with and laugh at their world. Now use these names to show cracks in the world's facade. They're excellent for bandit towns, forgotten ruins, and campfire lore. Let the players discover, or perhaps invent, the story behind the name. Sometimes the best world building isn't what you plan, it's what you don't. Alrighty, so now we've come down to the end, and I want to thank you for being here. I hope these names are all useful to you. Perhaps you'll find places to set them into your world. And whether you use the ones on my list or you come up with your own, that's really ultimately up to you, and important that you take ownership of whatever you've created. The adventure here is building the stories, and as game masters, we want to invite others to live in the worlds that we've created, and by having a solid and understanding nomenclature, we can know why the places are what they are, and therefore give greater identity to them for our players. So now, as we close out, I'm going to ask you some questions. What kind of names are in your campaigns? Do you favor the silly ones, or are you much more intent on gravitas and legacy? I have a great interest in what you are doing at your table, so I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you leave comments below, and I will be glad to respond to them. I really appreciate every one of you for being here. Do remember we are on the edge, on the brink of our Kickstarter for Nikos RPG, and that information will be trickling out and streaming out as soon as the information becomes available. We don't have a confirmation of the start date yet, but when we do, you'll know. Thanks again for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.